Hare Krishna. We're a little bit early. What do they say? The early bird gets the worm. Pretty gross analogy, but it makes sense. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Welcome to the next step in our adventure, eternal adventure, self-discovery and Krishna consciousness, all by the divine grace of our beloved founder Acharya, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I want to apologize for not being there for my class last week. For those who were expecting it or waiting for it or online. And we'll start with Srila Prabhupada. As usual, please listen carefully to the perfect words. Whether we understand exactly what it means or not, the words are completely purifying. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. By whose mercy we have the chance to completely perfect every aspect of our lives. How can we ever appreciate and express gratitude for what he is doing for us. And especially on this Ekadashi day, doubly auspicious. Ekadashi means that we minimize bodily necessities and give us more attention to direct Krishna consciousness. Whether we fast or not, it's valuable, but it's secondary. The main thing is to increase our Krishna conscious activities. And Prabhupada, he stressed very much the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regularly hearing, by regularly attending Srimad Bhagavatam, classes on, discourses on Srimad Bhagavatam, and rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart becomes practically destroyed. All that is troublesome to the heart becomes practically destroyed. And transcendental loving service unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental song, is established as an irrevocable fact. An irrevocable fact. All that is troublesome. So the only things that are troublesome are things that are not directly related to Krishna. And we may find that we have lots of those. And that's okay. In fact, usually the more we advance, the more we see how much we have. Prabhupada says the desire for material sense gratification is like a black river flowing through the heart. So we need to purify, deal with the pollution. As much as possible, we align our physical activities in Krishna consciousness gradually, or as quickly as realistic that we can maintain, and we focus as much as possible on controlling the mind. Prabhupada did say control the mind first, because we actually act with our mind, not with our senses. The senses follow along. So the hearing and chanting and discussing, Prabhupada said that association, classes means discussion. So someone speaks and others hear, but the discussion means that there is reciprocation. So I'm eager to have your input and just put in any comments in the chat that you like, or questions, or realizations, or doubts. I'm going to read. We're almost at the end of the introduction now. Prabhupada says, one cleanses himself daily by taking a bath in water. But one who takes his bath only once in the sacred Ganges water of the Bhagavad-Gita cleanses away all the dirt of material life. So that I take that as synonymous with attending and exchanging, hearing and chanting in Holy Prabhupada's books, discussion and classes. One who takes his bath only once in the sacred Ganges river of the Bhagavad-Gita cleanses away all the dirt of material life. Of course, we read also on our own, and yet we should always do that in conjunction with devotees who support us, who inspire us, who encourage us, and who can help us apply. Because Prabhupada didn't come to give us just some philosophy. In fact, he said very clearly that book knowledge, or even knowing Aham Brahmasmi, is not enough. We have to live it. So how do we apply the philosophy? And that comes either from Supersoul, and we should be open to whatever guidance is there, as long as it's confirmed with our checks and balances. We have 3 checks and balances: Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So we have Srila Prabhupada, the one in whom we can put complete faith without any doubt or any reservation. We have others, sadhus, who, as I said, are supportive and can help us bring the philosophy into our present life. So it goes from gyan, which means knowledge, to vigyan, or wisdom, realization of the principles that we hear and discuss. So the degree to which we apply the principles, that much we realize. And we get the result, as Prabhupada says here. We cleanse away all the dirt of material life. Because Bhagavad-Gita is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one need not read any other Vedic literature. One need only attentively and regularly hear and read Bhagavad-Gita. Hear and read, Prabhupada says. Hear and read. So reading is also Shravanam, hearing, and yet Prabhupada's making a distinction here. We read and we hear from others. And I didn't mention the 3rd check and balance: Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Whatever we do must be confirmed by those 3 to make sure we're not making it up or just following some dictation of our mind. In the present age, mankind is so absorbed with mundane activities that it is not possible to read all of the Vedic literatures. But this is not necessary. This one book, Bhagavad-Gita, will suffice because it is the essence of all Vedic literatures and because it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So 2 qualifiers. It's the essence, you could say the cream, of all the Vedas, and it's spoken by the original Guru, the source of all knowledge, who, as he says himself in Gita, I am the knower of the Veda as it is. So Krishna is the one who knows the Veda completely, perfectly. That's just one of his many qualifications. He also knows what will help us, and that comes through the pure devotee spiritual master, the Acharya. And that's why another reason this book is so valuable. It's the Bhagavatam becomes more relishable because it is touched by the beak of the parrot, Shuka. Shuka means parrot. Shukadev Goswami. So it's already sweet, but as soon as it's touched, repeated, shared by such a Mahabhagavad, a pure, unalloyed devotee like Prabhupada, then it becomes even sweeter and relishable and understandable Prabhupada completely empowered in that way to make it understandable and acceptable for any sincere soul, anyone, qualified or unqualified. It is said that one who drinks the water of the Ganges certainly gets salvation. But what to speak of one who drinks the waters of Bhagavad-Gita? Gita is the very nectar of the Mahabharata, spoken by Vishnu himself. The nectar of the Mahabharata. For Lord Krishna is the original Vishnu. I'll read that again. Gita is the very nectar of the Mahabharata, spoken by Vishnu himself. For Lord Krishna is the original Vishnu. It is nectar emanating from the mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Ganges is said to be emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord. Gita emanates from his mouth, and the Ganges from his lotus feet. Of course, there is no difference between the mouth and the feet of the Supreme Lord. But in our position, we can appreciate that the Bhagavad Gita is even more important than the Ganges. Now, someone might say, well, if we didn't have this explanation, or we had no faith in this explanation, we might think, well, taking a bath in the Ganges and hearing Bhagavad Gita is the same. But Prabhupada makes it very clear, no. And whether you've been to India or not, going to the banks of the Ganges, see so many people go there, even now, often on a daily basis, to bathe. And that's very auspicious. And yet, are they understanding and applying the importance, the power of the Bhagavad Gita by hearing and chanting and discussing it with a bona fide, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master? The principles of Krishna consciousness are very strict, very clear. And someone may say, well, they're so rigid. And yet, getting out of material life, getting out of material entanglement, and solving all the problems of life, on every kind of problem, any kind of problem, that's a very serious business. And without being clear, strict in a sense, disciplined, then it can't be successful. So that may sound discouraging. Whoops, my power is going down. I'll be 1 minute and get the power plugged in. In the meantime, chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. And another thing about hearing and chanting Bhagavad Gita is that we become so much more, we become enlivened. It's almost like stepping into the spiritual world. When you yes, hear, And more beyond that, you try to share it with others according to your realization. And especially surround yourself with people who are interested in doing the same thing and who are encouraging you to do that, to share with others. Because Prabhupada has given us a very wonderful burden of love to spread Krishna consciousness, give it to people who don't have it or who want to deepen it, improve it, increase it, expand it. As Lord Chaitanya says, Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, Pratipadam Purnamrita Swaranam, Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Glorious to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss. And it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. So the Sankirtan means sharing, receiving, giving, and receiving and giving. And I'm wondering if you make some endeavor to do that in your life. I greatly encourage you. You probably do. I'm not going to make any assumptions. And even if you are doing it, then increase it, because you'll find giving, as the Bible says, it is better to give than to receive. It's a perfect principle. Not that we shouldn't receive, we have to receive to be able to give. At the same time, even we don't feel like we receive very much, or we've understood very much, or realized very much, that doesn't matter, because as soon as we make the endeavor to share it with others, to give, to see where the person we're talking to or relating with, what their next step is, helping them, encouraging them, serving them. There's no better service than to give Krishna consciousness to another. And my point is that by doing that, we feel instantly, we do that austerity and take the risk. Oh, I don't know so much, or they might think it's funny, or they may reject it, or I don't know if I can explain it very well, or I won't find the words. As soon as we take the risk and go beyond all those doubts, and many of you, I'm sure, are already doing this. Maybe I'm preaching to the converted, but I find myself, I've been doing it on and off for years, and I don't always expand on it as much as I could. And when I do, just like now, I've been fasting, I'm feeling quite weak, a little headachy. As soon as I'm here sharing my realizations and my appreciation and gratitude for Srila Prabhupada's kindness in his perfect, purely potent words, we can appreciate that the Bhagavad-Gita is even more important than the Ganges. The Bhagavad-Gita is just like a cow. And Lord Krishna, who is a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. So the Gita is like a cow. Krishna is the cowherd boy who is milking the cow. The milk is the essence of the Vedas, and Arjuna is just like a calf. So Arjuna's drinking the milk, as we do. Arjuna is just like a calf. The wise men, even though, at least in the beginning, Arjuna was rejecting and rebelling and resisting, he was actually arguing with Krishna. He was trying to defeat Krishna's encouragement. And what did Krishna do? Krishna just listened to him. Later on, yes, he called him a fool. Smiled and called him a fool. But in the beginning, he just listened to him, allowed him what we might call sacred space to express himself, all his doubts, all his feelings, all his resistance, all his weakness. I can't even hold up my bow, Krishna. He just sit down. He's crying, he's bewildered, doubtful, resisting. So perfect example for us. Krishna, Arjuna allowed himself to be in that position. Krishna put him in that position so that we could relate with, yes, I have so many doubts, so many avoidances, so much resistance. And I'd rather do it sometime. And Krishna consciousness, even though we know in principle, we need to do some things we don't want to do, and to not do some things which we want to do for the higher cause. As we're ready, we give those up or we accept them. So the more we accept the austerity, whatever doubt is there, like in trying to give others Krishna consciousness with detachment, then we make advancement, we get realization, we become enlivened. Life becomes very different immediately. So Arjuna's, he gave us that example. It wasn't all just, oh yes, I understand and I accept everything you say, Krishna. In the beginning, it was the opposite. He wanted to leave the battlefield. He wanted to go and live in the forest, be a mendicant. He wanted to prove to Krishna that Krishna's encouragement that he should to fight was wrong. It was not the best thing for the situation. So there's a section in relation to what I'm reading now in the previous paragraphs, which Srila Prabhupada probably talked about. I found it so astounding. I wanted to share it with you again. If one adopts the principles enunciated in the Bhagavad-Gita, he can make his life perfect and make a perfect solution to all the problems of life, which arise out of the transient nature of material existence. He can make his life perfect and make a perfect solution to all the problems of life, which arise out of the transient nature of material existence. So Prabhupada says we can make our life perfect and make a perfect solution to all the problems of life which come from material existence. So sometimes we think, well, Krishna consciousness, Bhagavad-Gita, etc., is just for living on the spiritual platform, where they're all spiritual solutions, and they're all way out there, and one day we'll reach them. And yet Prabhupada is saying here that by adopting the principles enunciated in Bhagavad-Gita, we can solve all our so-called material problems. Now, it's interesting to note that for a devotee, there are no material problems. What? What do you mean by that? I mean that anything that a devotee is trying, and even an aspiring devotee, all of us are, I think, aspiring devotees on the way to perfection. then any challenge, problem, difficulty in our life is actually a spiritual problem because it's related to the life of a devotee. And the devotee tries to resolve problems in material life to make the material life more and more aligned with Krishna consciousness. As I said before, Prabhupada did not come just to give us philosophy. He brought us philosophy that is meant to be applied. So to develop faith that by applying the principles of Bhagavad-Gita, which includes the instruction to hear and chant with other devotees, as Prabhupada said, discuss this philosophy threadbare with like-minded devotees. So just in those few words, there's so many nuances. So again, we surround ourselves with people who are encouraging and inspiring for us, and who support us in learning how to adopt the principles of Bhagavad Gita in our very life with our so-called material problems. So even problems become devotional service, because by understanding and resolving the underlying causes of our material problems, we advance. We get more free. Prabhupada says, for example, that grihastha life, householder life, should be peaceful. So how do I make my family life peaceful? How do I prepare myself if I'm not married to make sure whatever relationship I am going into is conducive? Should be very careful who we decide to give our lives to. We're giving our lives to Prabhupada and Krishna, so then we need to consider, how will the person I'm considering marrying or spending time with at all will help me do that? My wife and I, Bhakti Marg and I, have a very supportive, mutually encouraging, and interdependent, a growing interdependent relationship. And sometimes she calls me to account. Sometimes I call her to account. Hey, is this actually the best thing for you, for your self-realization, for our relationship, for our preaching? So that's dealing with so-called material things or challenges. And the way relationships go these days, it's horrendous. So it's very valuable to take the time and trouble to approach long-term relationships in the mode of goodness. Very careful. And referring to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra in making our decisions about how to do it and who we relate with. So the one question that comes up for me is that how do we develop a very strong and abiding faith that by adopting principles taught in Bhagavad-Gita, we can make a perfect solution to all the problems of life, which arise out of transient nature of the transient nature of material existence. And then Prabhupada says something astounding as well. This is the sum and substance of the entire Bhagavad-Gita. So I thought, gosh, okay, this isn't just about solving. I mean, in one sense, it's helping me solve my problems, or then I can solve my problems. I shouldn't. Yes, I take responsibility that using these principles and applying them according to Guru Sadhu and Shastra, I can resolve. I can make a perfect solution to all the problems of my so-called material life. I can do that. So to develop that faith, how is that done? To develop faith in the cleansing power, the enlivening, the empowering potency of Bhagavad Gita. Everything's there. And Prabhupada did say, everything is in my books. I'm still trying to appreciate that, so that every time there's a challenge, I find some place in Prabhupada's books that instructs me or guides me or gives me indication how to act, how not to act, what to do, what not to do. And here Prabhupada is saying that we've just read that we don't need to read any other books. Now, often, any other books for some of us means that we read all kinds of books. Now, this may seem like a contradiction, that Prabhupada is saying you don't need to read anything else. You don't need to read anything else. And that's a fact. He also said all my disciples, followers, should read all of my books. So, according to our capacity, we do that, and our enthusiasm. At the same time, that doesn't minimize the reality that if we just study and discuss and share and understand to apply, in applying Bhagavad Gita, that's sufficient. One should read the Bhagavad Gita again and again and again, and there will always be something new on every page that you didn't see before. In fact, that paragraph I just referred back to, make a perfect solution to all the problems of life, which come out of the transient nature of material existence. I didn't really get that so much. And yet now it's a challenge, because I wonder, well, how do I do that? And I've practiced doing that to some extent, and still there's so much more. Ultimately, the problems are that I don't want to accept Krishna's guidance. Just like Arjuna. Arjuna again gave us the perfect example. He didn't want to, and it's quite easy to relate. I have so many doubts, so many challenges. I think I know better. My mind is very powerful and domineering. So I listen to it almost like default setting. So I practice to notice when we're acting according to our minds, our speculation, or are we going with the words of Bhagavad Gita? Words of Srila Prabhupada. Krishna says very clearly that the soul is eternal and it's full of all good qualities. Confidence, spiritual strength, humility, joy, conviction, generosity, love, self-control. All the qualities are there that are in Krishna, although in small quantity. So we have no dearth of possibility to deal with all the challenges. In fact, for a liberated soul, there's no problem at all. It's easy. It's automatic. Krishna consciousness becomes one's default setting, and yet that takes a lifetime of practice and commitment. And we want to make sure that we remain enthusiastic to continue. And that's largely to do with association. It's also large, which gives us the clarity where I'm avoiding that. So many things we do are maybe unconscious. It's automatic. That's the way we used to be. So we go along with that. Habit. Old habits die hard. And we've been maintaining this habit of independence from Krishna for how long? Since time immemorial. So I've said a lot, and I would like to know if there's some comments or questions or realizations, or just sign in and say Hari Bol, or I didn't understand this, or could you say something more about that, or I thought this and I thought I'd like to share it with you. Let us hear from you and expand the expansion, expand the sharing, expand the possibilities. It may take a little bit of austerity to speak up, yes. And when you take the risk, then Krishna, he reciprocates. What did Prabhupada say? We take one step towards Krishna, and he takes 10 steps towards us. Let me know you're out there, even if you don't ask or share anything. So what we're going to do is continue, unless and until there are any questions or realizations. Okay. And if you don't do it right away, then do it anytime. I'll finish. I'm going to read the last paragraph of the introduction to Bhagavad-Gita as it is. In this present day, man is very eager to have one scripture, one God, one religion, and one occupation. So let there be one common scripture for the whole world, Bhagavad-Gita. And let there be one God only for the whole world, Sri Krishna. And one mantra only, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And let there be one work only, the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada is taking a very strong, assertive position in relation to establishing, declaring the value, the potency, the importance, the universal value for everyone of Bhagavad-Gita and chanting of Hare Krishna and the service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his bona fide representative. It's a very strong, maybe lonely position to take. Prabhupada wrote this many, many years ago and didn't have any followers, any disciples. He didn't have any organization. And yet his faith, his conviction, his commitment, shown in all the austerity that he went through, even just to come to the West, was there from the beginning. He said, "I'm completely unqualified. I am the most fallen, lowly beggar." He wrote at the end of that poem, marking Bhagavatam. And yet, he said, "I had full faith in the words of my spiritual master." Full faith, full conviction. That's where we want to go. That's how we want to develop. So then the last part, the conclusion of the Bhagavad-Gita introduction, is called the Disciplic Succession. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidu, Bhagavad-Gita 4:2. This Bhagavad-Gita, as it is received through the Disciplic Succession. Krishna, Brahma, Narada, Vyas, Madhva, Padmanabha, Nrihari, Madhava, Akshobhya, Jayatirtha, Jnanasindhu, Dayanidhi, Vidyanidhi, Rajendra, Jayadharma, Purushottam, Brahmanyatirtha, Vyasatirtha, Lakshmipati, Madhavendra Puri, Ishvarapuri. Ishvarapuri is number 21 in the succession, and in brackets after his name, the name of Ishvarapuri is Nityananda and Advaita. 22, Lord Chaitanya. 23, Rupa, and in brackets, Swarup and Sanatan Goswamis. 24 is Raghunath and Jiva, Raghunath Goswami and Jiva Goswami. 25 is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. 26 is Narottam Das Thakur. 27 is Vishwanath. 28 is Baladev in brackets and Jagannath. 29 is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. 30 is Gaur Kishoredas Babaji Maharaj. 31 is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Prabhupada's spiritual master. And 32 is His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Chaitanya himself took the position of a disciple of Ishvarapuri to show the perfect example of being a devotee. He's Krishna, but he came to show us exactly how to be a devotee. In the 15th chapter of the Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are descriptions of how when the devotees came from Bengal and Orissa and all over, mostly Bengal, then they would gather for to see Lord Chaitanya and attend the Rath Yatra festival. And they would stay there, I think, 4 months. And during that time, there were many festivals, like Janmashtami and the birth giving ceremony of Nanda Maharaj, Nandotsava, for Krishna. And the Lord Chaitanya and the cow and his friends would play act as cowherd boys. They would enjoy taking possession of the identities of cowherd boys. Sridham, Sudam, Bahu, Mahabahu. There are 12 primary, or most important, cowherd boys. And Advaita Acharya said to Lord Chaitanya, please don't be angry, but I will know that you are actually a cowherd boy if you can twirl this rod in the air. So they had these big staffs, rods, and Lord Chaitanya took it up and he started twirling it in the air. Sometimes he threw it up in the air and caught it on the way down, twirling, twirling, twirling. Sometimes he would do it behind his back. Sometimes he would do it on his sides. Sometimes he would do it through his legs. And Lord Nityananda also did that. Great fun. So Advaita Acharya, he was being a bit cheeky. I'll only believe you that you're really a cowherd boy when you twirl that rod. And it's described there that when Lord Chaitanya threw the rod up in the air, twirling, and caught it, twirling, their hearts were astounded. And they were chanting, all glories, all glories, all glories. So their play acting was very real. And on the Dasami Vijaya festival of the day when Lanka was conquered by Lord Ram and Lakshman and Hanuman and all the monkey soldiers, Lord Chaitanya dressed up. He dressed up as Hanuman, and he had all the others dress up as the monkey soldiers. And Lord Chaitanya, he, as Hanuman, he scaled the walls of Lanka, and he said, with an angry tone, where is this Ravana? He has stolen, he's kidnapped the eternal mother, the original goddess of fortune, Sita Devi, the consort of our Lord Ram. And I'm going to kill him. Where is he? So everyone was astounded by the genuine, deep, emotional expressions and actions of Lord Chaitanya. The Prophet said when devotees do plays, they become the personalities they're portraying. Very powerful. So if there's nothing else, I mean, there's always something else. There's always unlimited. But we'll finish up there. And if you want to say anything or add anything or ask or share, please do so. And of course, if you're joining after this live session, you can always put your comments in the comment section below. So, wishing you a very wonderful Ekadashi, if you're observing it today. And look for at least one chance to share Krishna consciousness with someone else. It takes some discernment, some deep thought sometimes to know where a person's at. Because we want to present Krishna consciousness according to where they're at, not where they should be. Let's start from where we're at. That's the same for ourselves. We start where we're at, because if we expect someone to be on a plane that's not real for them, they're not going to be interested. They're going to be maybe confused or become disinterested. So it's an art. Prabhupada describes it's an art. How to give Krishna consciousness to people so they will accept it. That is perfection of our preaching. So look for an opportunity to do that today and every day. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sadhu Sangha ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki jai. Okay. Okay, Howard. Thanks for your message. Hare Krishna. It's great to have you with us. If you weren't driving, Howard, I'd ask you what in particular you might have appreciated. But you can always contact me directly. Hari Hari Bol.